Welcome back to Local Butter. We're here at AdFed's AdBite Luncheon, and we pulled aside their guest speaker in from New York City. So we just talked him into doing a short little Q&A with us. So Mike, why don't you just start off with who you are, what you do, give us a little flavor about Mike.
Yep. My name's Mike Arouse. I'm a senior strategist at Undercurrent. We are a small digital strategy company based in New York City. And we basically work with a bunch of companies like PepsiCo and Ford to help them figure out how to use the internet. Designing for networks. What does that mean? Why is it important? Some examples and some frameworks for thinking about it and how to actually put this idea into action. To begin with, I want to start with this quote from Clay Shirky. Clay Shirky is a very, very smart guy, and he wrote a wonderful book called Here Comes Everybody, which I highly recommend you read if you haven't already. The book is about how people are coming together, enabled by the internet, to share, cooperate, and collaborate in ways that we've never seen before. And this shift is profound, and these basic this hierarchy of participation, group engagement on the web is what I want to use for us to think about designing for networks. So the reason why I think it's important is that I believe that the effectiveness of our marketing efforts will be judged and is dependent on our ability to engage and empower a network of people connected by a shared interest. Everyone is connected to each other through the web. People gather and organize in networks around shared interests.
How does it work with you trying to go in front of these traditional clients that kind of have their own cultures about how to market their brands and get them to kind of switch in some of these creative programs that you described today in great detail, like Cliff Bar or the ROM or Ford Fiesta, and using video and that in those programs?
Well, fortunately, most of the clients, and especially the clients that we've done our best work with, are very progressive. They're looking for ways to innovate. They know that they have to adopt new ways of communicating with people in order to thrive, in order to do something that really resonates and connects. So they're eager for new opportunities.
And telling a joke, and the people who get the joke are in, and the people who don't get the joke are out. It's a really clear way to do that.
We have absolutely seen slow but steady change and evolution, and I think it's just something that takes time, but it is changing.
So you talked about in your Ford Fiesta program the number of impressions on a video. So is part of kind of mid-program to go back to them, share with them the results, and are they able to kind of interpret the more social results around impressions and that versus being on the Super Bowl where we guarantee 100 million viewers?
Yeah, there's still a lot of learning around that, and that's something that certainly hasn't been settled yet, but that's highly relevant by one very authentic voice posted to his or her own channel, to his own established audience. Doesn't that view count for something more? Isn't it more valuable than a 30-second TV spot? There's not a whole lot of proof yet that it is.
It's hard to get the apples-to-apples comparison
exactly.
on the...
And that's very much something that's still being worked out.
Yeah.
If you look at those stats, you see that the click-through rates, if you compare the number of clicks generated by the post to the number of followers or the reach that that person had, it usually ends up being in a similar ballpark to online display media.
Right.
Maybe a little bit more if somebody has really high relevancy and a really focused following, and maybe you'll get as much as 2, 3, 5% click.
Cost of that media, even if the percentages are substantially lower than, say, a TV ad, the cost to that new media, as I like to call it, social media or otherwise, so substantially less, if not free.
Exactly, and that's absolutely where it gets interesting. I like the term earned media. I think that's desirable, and companies that do things that really resonate with a particular audience earn attention and engagement, that kind of attention and engagement.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter that it might be the same click-through rate on Twitter, but what matters is that you didn't have to pay for it.
Right. Over the last several years, the newspaper industry's been hurt financially by things like Craigslist and otherwise, about being slow to adopt or change their business model to something that's a lot leaner. And it's similar but different to what the industry that you're in, kind of the advertising world. Traditional advertising business model, meaning, hey, I go buy a bunch of ad space on TV and radio, I get a percentage fee around that, where that cost is a lot higher than the new media exercise. Are those traditional firms, do you think they're adjusting their business models quick enough? Or
the ones that are adapting and what they're doing right, I think, is moving towards a more iterative and agile way of working. That's what's critical. And the big traditional agencies, that's the thing that they have trouble with. They're too big. There's too much hierarchy. There's too much structure.
Those are structures just built on a lot of cost.
Yeah, exactly.
And so to scale down is just tough when you go from $100 million project to something that maybe like what you guys work on that might be low seven figures. Is a big change, big cultural change. Is good for you, but not good for the big firms that don't change.
Absolutely. And what I'm desperate to see, and I think people are starting to do things like this in small ways, it's basically working more like the internet works. You build something before it's done, and you put it up, and you see how it works, and see how people interact with it. Because the cost of producing a digital experience, the cost of distributing it and making it available to people is basically zero.
Right.
So get it out there, and then you can turn around. If you're doing that on a regular basis, you can see what works, put more energy behind the things that work. And also then turn to your clients and say, hey, we've already got this thing that's kind of working. Maybe you'd like to put your
the software world would call that agile development. Build something, put it out there, see if people like it. If not, we'll change it really quick. So what you're describing is, I don't know if there's a term for it, but kind of agile marketing or agile advertising.
The only other thing that I would mention is that Foursquare is a cool platform, and lots of brands are playing with that, and it's worth it just to be involved at such an early stage.
Right.
But we did a very cool, very small project with GE a couple months ago where they sponsored an environmental activist, a 15-year-old environmental activist from the UK who is hiking to the North Pole.
Right.
So working with them, working with their digital development partner, we created an experience on Facebook where people could track his progress, follow him there, and then the added bonus was when he got to the North Pole, he was the first person to check in on Facebook, on Foursquare to the North Pole.
And so
he got his own little badge.
It gets that outdoor community, as you like to talk about, but then GE gets to associate themselves with a community that they probably otherwise have a hard time touching.
Yep. The only thing that's new is that now locations can also be part of that stream that we broadcast out.
It's real-time location as opposed to real-time info.
Where I am and what I'm actually doing in the real world can also be part of that stream. What's good about what Foursquare has been doing, in a way that most brands have been interacting with Foursquare so far, is that it's not about pushing messages to people who don't want them because, we know that you're near our source, so we're going to force a message at you. It's more about rewarding loyalty.
You're kind of, in your definition, building community through loyalty. Is that one way to look at it?
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming on Local Butter. It's great to get a big New York star working with big Fortune 500, Fortune 50 brands, and we wish you well during your trip here and back.
Thank you.
All right.